Good morning, folks. Irene here from Green Road Gardens. Well, I don't know where you are in the country, but here in South County Wexford, it is an absolutely glorious day. The sun is shining and all that rain is gone, so it is great. So it got me thinking about spring and planting bulbs for the spring. So I'm going to do a thing called a bulb lasagna with you. So it's a system whereby you layer up a whole lot of different bulbs in very close proximity to each other in a large pot, and it gives you a wow factor in the springtime and a lot of continuation because they'll flower one after another over the spring. So that's what I'm going to do with you. And so I'm using this big pot here. I can't tell you how many litres is in it. I should be able to, but I'm not. Anyway, a big pot. And you can do them big as you like, really. And what's a good idea, if you have a very nice terracotta pot or a ceramic pot of some kind, if you plant up your bulbs in a plastic pot about the same size that will fit into your nice pot, it means then that later on in the spring, when the bulbs have all done their thing, you can just lift out the inner pot and put in another one with summer bedding in it. So it's just to keep the outside pot, rather than having to spend a whole lot of money on ceramic pots, you can just have, 2 or 3 nice ones and just keep interchanging with plastic pots. Take out the one that's in it and put in another one that's ready to go. So what I'm going to do in the bottom of it first is I'm going to put in some crock, which basically is some broken terracotta. You could equally well put in some big stones into it. I've also used polystyrene trays, the way you can buy pansies or whatever in polystyrene trays, and then you don't know what to do with them because they're pretty much unrecyclable. So they're also good at making a pot light, so if you put those down in the bottom, they will act as drainage as well, but they won't add to the weight of the pot. So I've just put that in the bottom there. And then I have a multi-purpose compost here. I generally buy the one with John Innes in it, and which means it has a soil content. And then I'm going to add a bucket full of my own garden compost here into it, and a little bit of bone meal. And what you don't want to add in here is anything with a high nitrogen content. So because a high nitrogen content will give you lots of leaf but not a lot of flower. So you want to go for something with more slow release and potassium in it, phosphate. So I'm just going to give that a good mix up like that, just like mixing a cake. And I decided to go with the Wexford colours. So what I have here, I have some yellow daffodils. I have 2 different varieties of purple tulips. I have some bright yellow tulips. And then I have a little mini daffodil. And I find these ones good, the tate, because they're small and they don't blow over in the wind. And then I'm going to top it off with some crocuses, and again I have a mixture of yellow and blue. Okay, so I'm going to put in a couple of inches of the compost into the bottom, just to go a couple of inches above the crock, and the crock is there to create drainage. So the first thing that you put in is the thing that is the biggest. So it would generally be narcissi or the big daffodils. So I'm going to put in the large daffodils here first. So you can pack in as many as you like, so long as they're not touching each other. And you can, normally I tell you read the instructions on the labels, but with this, ignore the distances and the depth for this. So I'm putting only 5 in here, but you could, but just happens to be what I have. So I've just placed the 5 down there, are evenly spaced around. And then just put in another layer of your mix. And then the next thing that I will put in will be the tulips, because they're the next largest plant. And look for plants that will, or bulbs that will flower at different times. So like if you can get something that'll flower in March and then something that'll flower in April, you know, and spread the flowering time, so that if you have this outside your door, you have flowers over a longer period of time. So these are the yellow ones that I'm putting in here. I'm just going to space them around. If you're planting bulbs outside, I mean, I'm being particular about where I'm putting these now. If you're planting bulbs outside, you should do it in a more random way. So like stand and just fling them, and wherever they land, plant them there. Because it looks very unnatural if you have all your daffodils lined up like a line of soldiers. And the temptation is then, and I've done it myself, when you do throw them, the temptation is to say, oh, there's two there close together, maybe I'll space those out. But don't. Just let it look, it'll look a lot more natural if you just throw them and let them fall where they will. So I have two different types of tulip here, two different purple ones. One is a more fulsome one and one is more pointed. And if you look on the back here, it'll tell you, as I say, it'll tell you the depth, and it'll tell you the distance, and it'll tell you the flowering. So this one is saying January, February, March, April, May, it's saying for this one, whereas this one is saying May. So, and the daffodils will be March, April. So this is already going to give you a continuum of flowers. So again, I'm going to just push these in, space them out. And as I say, the only rule is not to have them touching each other. Now, you would never plant them this closely if you were doing them outside. And the funny thing about tulips is that they seem to be able to find the optimum. I have read that now do you see how close they are there? You would never do that outside, but in this situation you can. And because I have enriched the soil so much, they'll be fine. But I wouldn't leave them in the pot for next year. I would take these out because they'll have had so little nutrition in here. Either just take them out and put them into a holding bed and feed them for the summer, and then plant them out in the autumn, or just put them somewhere, but they'll want to be fed well next year. And you could actually give a liquid seaweed feed when these are flowering and just coming up to flowering. And these would make a wonderful Christmas present for somebody, because it's that thing that, like at Christmas people get lots of presents, but this is going to be a present that is going to go on giving right into the springtime, when we need a little bit of cheer. I got these down in the wheelhouse, my son's cafe down in Featherton-Sea. So he has lots of bulbs there at the moment. So if you're in getting your takeout, check out what he has there. And he also has pots and things and compost. So if you want to make up a Christmas present for somebody, it's a lovely, lovely present. And he might even give you a cut. If you get enough. So the next one now that I'm putting in is the little Tate daffodil, and I absolutely love these ones. The big tall daffodils, they're inclined to, if you have them out this is the big one now, if you have them out in a windy spot, they can be inclined to fall over. The first gust of wind that comes, they fall over, whereas the little Tate ones are lovely in that they don't do that, and they look lovely and natural. If you have them in the garden around under trees and things, they sit in very naturally. So again, I'm going to put these around. And it's getting to a time now where tulips and that you can plant. I've planted them right up till after Christmas. But things like daffodils and that, you want to be getting them in now. So, put it in front of yourself in the next week or so to get in your bulbs. So that's my Tate in there. So I'm going to just cover those. And then the last bulbs that I'm going to put into this are the crocuses. And again, I've gone with the old Wexford colours here, the yellow and the purple. So these are a lot smaller, a bulb. Now, I didn't explain to you with the other bulbs, but you'll know the pointy bit goes up and generally the bottom end is flat. And like this one, you can see now why I'm saying to you, plant them now this week. These crocuses here are starting to put up a little shoot. So you'll absolutely know which way they go up. So I'm going to whack those in. There's a little patch in my garden that I have decided I'm going to have a crocus lawn in. It's just outside the workshop where I give classes. And I went down to Thomas and I got 5 packets of 50. So I'm going to hopefully have a wow factor outside the cabin in the springtime. And the crocuses are great for that because, again, they don't get blown around too much in the wind. So there's our last layer of bulbs. So I'm going to cover that up, and then just so that it won't be looking dull for the next couple of the month, let's say, I'm going to put in, and again I'm keeping with the purple and gold, so I'm putting in this, it's called a heuchera, and it will have little very delicate flower spires in about May. So again, always squeeze the pot and drop it out onto your hand. And if it's a bit pot bound, just loosen up the roots like that. So I'm just going to put that whack in the middle. And I also have here a trailing ivy. So trailing ivies are great in pots because they give you a whole other dimension. You don't want everything standing up. Always in any arrangement that you make, either a flower arrangement or a pot, it's good to have different leaf forms, different flower shapes, different heights, some of them hanging down, some of them standing up, some of them bushy, some of them very straight up. So I'm just putting the ivy in for that. And you might think, well, now that's a hell of a lot of stuff to be in there. How are they going to be seen? But it's quite amazing. I've done this for the last number of years, and they all seem to weave their way up and find their way up to the top. So again, this ivy, I'm just loosening up the roots, and I'm going to put that hanging out over the front there. And I went out into my garden, and there is a plant called a forget-me-not. It's a little blue flower, and it comes in about May. And it's a biennial. So when it flowers in May, once it dies back, it drops its seeds and it creates little plants at the end of the year. So these are the little... So it's created its plant for next year now. So these I can put in and they will flower next May. So I'm just going to put these in around. I just have 3 of them. So I'm just going to space those around. And the reason that I'm putting these is they create a lovely frothiness of blue and green that will hide the leaves. You know the way when tulips and daffodils are going off, the leaves look terrible and you can't cut them off because you need to let them die back into the bulb if you want to use the bulb again the following year. If you cut off the leaves, you're cutting off all the potential energy for next year. So you've got to leave the leaves. So by planting something like this forget-me-not into here, it will hide, or somewhat hide anyway, all those horrid leaves that are dying back. Now, so I'm just going to top all that off with the compost in between those. And I mean, just even as it is, that pot would look all right as a gift. But to know that it's going to go on giving and giving and giving right until May is wonderful. And as I say, you know, if you wanted to put it if you wanted to get a nice ceramic pot, just plant them into a plastic pot and explain to them that they can interchange it for another plastic pot in the summer and put in some summer bedding. So give that a go. You can try different things, but basically the rule is that you put the taller things that are going to take the longest to come up down in the bottom of the pot. And then you put so daffodils, tall daffodils, and narcissi in the bottom, tulips in the middle, and then things like the crocus and the tate near the top. And then you can plant anything you like on the top. Another good thing, as well as the forget-me-not for hiding the leaves, and that is wallflowers. So you can sometimes get wallflowers in the garden centres at this time of year, little trays of wallflowers, and they're wonderful and they'll give colour as well. So you could theme it. Sometimes you can get it that the wallflowers will flower at the same time as the tulips. So firstly you'd have your daffodils and your narcissi and things, and then the tulips will come and the wallflowers will come at the same time and look fabulous. I might try and put some photographs in the comments of this kind of thing when it's in flower. So that's it for today. Get yourself down to the wheelhouse and get yourself a takeout and some bulbs to go. Okay, over and out.